Hey y'all, it's Christy Cook from Teadoddles. Today's Tutorial Tuesday is all about thread, and this is more specifically sewing machine thread, or some threads you may encounter when looking for sewing machine thread. Let's just kind of dive right in. I wanted to go back over, I had someone ask me a question about last week I did sewing machine needles, and if we look right here, I got this big needle on purpose. You can see that slotted groove in the needle. That is where the thread goes when it's pushed down through the fabric. It's supposed to rest inside that slot. That's what protects the thread as it's punched through your fabric. So I had someone, they were using a top stitch needle for quilting, which I said I do. They said that their thread was fraying when they sewed with it, and that's probably why. They needed to go up a needle or down a thread weight size. Okay, you can use a top stitch. It comes in varying sizes, so that's what that groove is designed for. It's to protect the thread as it's punched through the fabric. So that's why it's important to make sure you have the right needle as well as thread weight. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, we're going to talk about, I have a bunch of different threads here. I have some Gutermann, some Aurifil, lots of Coats and Clark. I have some serger thread, metallic and elastic thread, and then varying things between. So we're going to talk about one of my favorite threads to use first, which is Gutermann. Gutermann thread comes in a bunch of different kinds, which a lot of threads do. I've just found this to be the most durable thread for sewing most things. There we go. So as you can see, this is 100% cotton. This is 100%, I had it turned around, polyester, and this blue one is 100% silk. Okay, and that color is indicates what is on the spool. Their cottons always come in a tan, polyester comes in this white, and then the silk comes in blue. I think it's the only thing that comes in blue, but either way, I like Gutermann for now I'm wondering what this means, because I was trying to find the weights of these earlier, and no, I don't think that has anything to do with the weight. That's some more of their coating, because what you're going to find is that most of these do not have a thread weight on it. And that's because if they're sold like this, fairly standard stuff, all-purpose, standard quilting, things like that, 40 weight is the standard. Okay, that is the standard you're going to find if you're buying just sewing thread beyond these other ones I'm going to show you momentarily. It's going to be a 40 weight. Some people do use 60 or 80 weight for their quilting, because it stands out, makes it pop because it's a thicker thread. Thread is the opposite of needles. Needles, the higher the number, the bigger the needle. Thread, the higher the number, the finer the thread. So when I said 80-60, that's actually a finer thread than the 40 weight. You can go down to a 20 weight, is a thicker thread, right? So thread is the opposite of the needle, which is always fun when they do things like that, right? Okay, so just remember that when you think about thread. If it's got a higher number, it's a finer thread. And I think I said that some people use quilting, they use the 80 or 60 weight. They do, but it's a finer thread, and it's to get more intense quilting detail, so to speak. If you use a heavier one, sorry about that, you're going to get, the stitches will pop out more and not blend into the fabric as much, as so to speak. So I'm trying to show y'all these with my little handy card over here. you can kind of see, now I've done this one time already, and it got all discombobulated. I thought I had figured things out, but let's see. All right, so we're gonna take a look at these threads. You can see, hopefully you can see, the silk thread's in the middle. The cotton thread is on the bottom. The top is polyester. So you're gonna see a little shadow on the cotton thread. Most cotton threads have a little fuzz to them. Even the smoothest ones do. They don't have as much, but it's hard to get it completely smooth because it is cotton, okay? The silk thread is slightly thicker than these other threads, just ever so slightly. All of these can be used in the machine. I've used all of these in the machine. This pops out a little bit on these, so you can stick in the end of your thread. The little ones, the whole end comes out. If I can get it to do that. Yeah, there we go. So, some people like to use that as a hidey hole for a needle, which you certainly can set a needle in there to keep with your thread. This silk thread I like to use for hand sewing, like if I'm doing a blind hem stitch or something like that, or I have used it for embroidery. I have used it for top stitching on some of my bags because it has a nice sheen to it. So it's just a very nice thread. Silk thread is actually fairly strong. And then the polyester I use for top stitching on bags. I don't use it for quilting. I prefer a cotton for quilting, but I have used this for top stitching on the bags, and I use it to sew seams and things like that. I save this mostly for top stitching because I have a bunch of colors. I bought a whole bin of different colors so I can change out the top thread if I want to. So that is what I use for Gutermann for. The cotton I use for my quilting, depending on what I'm quilting, okay? Depending on the look I'm going for. This is a more matte cotton than some others, okay? For instance, like the Aurifil. Aurifil thread is like a big thing with quilters. It's the smoothest, one of the smoothest cottons you can find. Now, I have heard some people say they have problems with it in their machines because it doesn't like the smoothness of it. I've never had trouble with it. I do love it for quilting, especially if it's something more delicate, I guess. I don't know how to put that, but it's a nice cotton for quilting. It blends in nice. This is the 40 weight, the standard size. Now this one, the end does pop off if you needed to do that for whatever reason. This is Mako cotton. Now Mako cotton is grown in Egypt. It is a long fiber length cotton, the longest one that is grown. So that's why it's prized for special things, okay? I showed some Mako cotton yarn, and it just makes it softer because of the longer fibers. And that is true with most natural fibers. So you can buy wool threads, but I don't have any wool threads. Most of the time it's for embroidery that I've seen, but these are my these are both 100% cotton. And you'll notice also, these are the ones I use for quilting. That's what I was going to say. That this is wound like the up and down wind, and this is wound round and round. I'm going to link a video that I watched about this because the way this is wound onto the spool and the way you pull it off the stand you sit it on your machine can make a difference. If you're having issues with tension, it may be what's causing it. And I never thought about that before, and I can't remember which direction. It's got the difference between you having one sit this way and you having one sitting straight up, okay? And I'm pretty sure this is the one that's supposed to be straight up, and this is the one that's supposed to be sideways when you pull off of it, but I can't remember for sure. So I'm going to link the video if I can find it down below. All right. Now, I talked about my Aurifil. Majority, the rest of this, most of this is The rest of this is Coats and Clark, except for the specialty ones in the back I'll talk about in a little bit. Now, Gutermann does make an all-purpose thread as well. As a matter of fact, I think that polyester is one of their all-purpose threads. But this is Coats and Clark all-purpose thread, which is 100% covered polyester. Polyester covered polyester. Because sometimes you'll find cotton thread, cotton covered polyester. This is polyester covered polyester. All right. Now, if you're looking for the weights of thread, in the beginning I talked about weights of thread. Go to the manufacturer's website, and you usually will find a chart of their weights, what weight their thread actually is per what they sell, like the all-purpose thread. I think their all-purpose thread is actually a 35 weight, but 35-40 weight is standard for what you're going to find in the store for your sewing machine. This thread is fuzzy compared to, hopefully y'all can see some fuzzing going on. It has a fuzz to it. If you've ever looked for a thread, especially, this is not as bad as some of the super generic threads, like if you get them at the Dollar Tree or something. They are very fuzzy. You can see a bit of a halo, maybe. And this is why I only use this for seams. I've used it for seams for all kinds of things, clothing, bags, quilts, whatever. But I do prefer the Aurifil for piecing, even though it's pricier. I try to save it for quilting because it costs so much. But because this right here, well, thread can be pricey. It depends on what you get. But this is like $14 for this bigger spool. A small spool like this is Gutermann, but a small Aurifil spool like this, it runs you about $3.98 on Fat Quarter Shop. So, but this thread for your, if you're just fixing things every once in a while and what have you, you can use this for just about anything. Okay. Now, I don't use this for top stitching because of the fuzz factor, because it does fray more easily and it sheds a little bit because of that fuzz factor on it. Okay, it's still a good quality thread. I have nothing against Coats and Clark. I buy Coats and Clark for stuff all the time. Alright, so then we're going to move on to these two. These are dual duty plus. These are heavy duty threads, okay? One is for denim thread for jeans, and one is extra strong for jeans because it is the top stitch thread for jeans. Okay, I think you can see how much thicker this thread is than the other thread, this top stitch thread. Okay, so this one you definitely want to make sure you're using a heavy duty needle that is appropriately sized for that thread to go through as you're sewing. I use this when I repair my husband's jeans patches and stuff, or when I'm sewing on denim. This is the thread I use because it is specially designed for that. It is spun in a different way. It doesn't have as much of a halo. It has a little bit, but not as much, because it is 68% polyester, 32% cotton, and then this one is 61% polyester, 38% cotton. Okay, but they are stronger threads and they work great for repairing pants or for making jeans. That's what they are intended for. I have used this on bags when I'm doing denim or upholstery sewing for the seams. I've used that. This one here, you do have to make sure that you use the appropriate size needle, and you may have to adjust the tension a little bit. Your upper tension to get the thread to come through correctly, because it is a thicker thread. Okay, next we'll talk about this. This is actually a Coats and Clark. This is a machine embroidery tri-lobal polyester. Okay, now this polyester is much smoother, no halo on it, than the all-purpose polyester. Okay, because it is a higher quality thread, and the tri-lobal has got to do with how it's spun on when they make the thread. This is a 40 weight. This one does say what weight it is. You won't find that on most thread labels. This right here, I have used this to quilt some bags because of the sheen it gives. It looks really cool. I wouldn't use it in a quilt necessarily unless I was going for a certain look. It's more decorative because it is embroidery thread. It is more durable because a machine embroidery, the needle goes back and forth and it does all kinds of things, and the thread needs to be able to withstand that. So it's a more durable thread. And plus it's nice and shiny. And I've used this on formal wear. As a matter of fact, that's what that's left over from. And I use it on garments when I have like a poly or chiffon-y type material I'm sewing with. That's what I use. So next we're gonna go talk about these two because these are both hand sewing threads. It says hand on this one, and both of them have a picture of a hand on it. And why I'm pointing this out is because this is cotton hand quilting. Do not put this in your machine. I'm gonna tell you, because of this glacé finish. These both have a glacé finish, which is kind of like a wax coating, okay? And it can mess up the tensioning in your machine, okay? It's not made to go through your machine. Now, there may be somebody out there that has used this with success. I've never had success using this in the machine because it's not made for your machine. It has that glacé finish cotton. It is designed to make it easier to hand sew. Like if you're hand sewing something, a lot of times you'll run it through wax, or at least I do, to make it glide through the fabric more easily. This is pre-finished in such a way, okay? This one says button craft on it. This one's a little bit thicker than the other one even. It's not as thick as the denim thread. It's not about the thickness of the thread. It's about the coating on the thread, okay? And I do use this for buttons, like it says. I use it when I'm sewing buttons on something that's heavy duty. I will use the silk thread for lighter weight garments that have buttons, because this is going to hold up if it's a heavy duty whatever. And I have used both of these for upholstery sewing because they're heavy duty threads, and they have that coating on it. It makes it stronger. It makes it glide through things more easily. It does not, you don't need that for your sewing machine. So please, I wouldn't put these in your sewing machine at all. You may think because it says quilting, even though it says hand quilting, that it's okay. No, it's got a coating on it, and it's for hand sewing. What was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought a little bit. They do make, I don't have one because I don't buy, they make a thread that will say quilting thread, right? And it's slightly different, but I'd rather buy the Aurifil or Gutermann for quilting. That's my personal choice, okay? I have better luck with it. I have less breakage. And it's just a better thread all around that I prefer. So now I'm going to talk about this one. This is an older Clark's thread spool. It's one I thrifted. I do use this thread. If the thread goes through, I do a test. If it breaks too easily when I pull on it, or if I try to sew with it and it keeps breaking, I know that it's become too brittle to sew with. But this is actually, I've found that the thread on these older spools can be much nicer than today's Coats and Clark. Personally, depending on which brand you buy, you don't have as much fuzz on it, and this is most likely 100% cotton. I'm not completely sure. Yeah, this is mercerized 3-cord cotton. It's very nice. It's a little bit thicker weight than a 40 weight. It doesn't really say what it is, but this is a nice thread. I can find some nice threads on these older spools. That left twist is just the way it was spun onto the spool. What I do when I have older thread, if I find it like this, I will wind off the top layer because it's typically coated in dust or some kind of dirt. So I will wind that all off, okay? And then I can see if I have usable thread up under. If I don't, I just keep them. I have a huge pickle jar in there that I turn into a lamp, y'all. And I have all kinds of empty wooden spools like that because they're just cool. And I use them for other things. But if they have thread on them, I still will use them if it is usable. It's very nice thread, actually. Alright, so that's all my Coats and Clark. Now we're going to talk about some kind of special threads. Well, let's talk about the overlock thread. It's not really special thread. It just comes in a bigger spool. Okay? It's usually 100% polyester. You can find some polyester blends, polyester cotton blends. I'm not sure about this one. This is one I thrifted. I don't know how old it is. Well, actually, you can see inside. This is JP Coats. So, it's now Coats and Clark. And it says 6 cord. This had 3,000 yards on it. Boil fast. It's probably TK40 is probably the weight, maybe. This is sold by Coats and Clark, but you don't really see JP Coats very much. J&P Coats. Yeah, this is soft right cotton thread. So this is cotton. Now the older spools, you will find more cotton. They didn't do the polyester then. So this one's 100% polyester, which I have a hard time finding any. You can find overlocking thread that is cotton. It usually costs more. That's all I'm going to say about that. But you can use these on your machine too. You have to put it in like a cup to thread it up through, because you won't be able to fit it on the spool on your sewing machine. So, but I have a ton of this. As you recall, in my crafty thrifting adventure, I bought a whole 5-gallon bin full of thread serger cones of all kinds of colors and sizes for $50. So I have thread for life, pretty much. So, and I had already bought these before. They're in the plastic. So yeah. So next is this. I think this is Madeira. It is a metallic thread. The thing about metallic thread is it stretches. Oh, you see that? The fiber's coming off like that because it has a core to it and it has this stuff spun around it. So it stretches when you sew with it a little bit, which is part of the thing that causes it so much trouble. The other thing is because it's just a very finicky thread. This is an embroidery one, but you have to really set up your machine specifically for metallic thread sewing when you're going to use it. I don't even know why I have this, honestly. I can't remember what I used this for. It had a hand sewing needle in it. I think I probably just used it for some hand sewing, but you're going to want to make sure you use the metallic needle and set up the tensions correctly in your machine before you start trying to sew with this, because you're going to be crying because it's not going to do right. It's going to break and you're going to be frustrated. So make sure you look into that for your machine specifically, and then you may have to play with it a little bit to get it just right before it will sew for you. And this is definitely a finer thread than any of the other ones I've talked about. And then we have elastic thread. I actually picked up a bunch of this in my crafty estate sale haul. I have never sewn with elastic thread. This is made to be put in your machine. Of course, just like the metallic thread, you want to set things up correctly for sewing with it because it does stretch. And there's things you need to do that you need to look at your machine specifically to know how to know what to do when you sew with this. I'm not even sure if this particular is any good because it doesn't have very much stretch. It was kind of old in the thing, but I did read a tip that to steam iron it before you, not steam iron, just to steam it with your iron before you use it. It contracts the fibers and it makes it stretchier. in the end. So I don't know. This is one I've never sewn with. I don't have experience with sewing with elastic thread, but I would love to try it. It says it's really good for shirring and stuff like that. So those are all my threads. I hope I helped answer some questions you might have had about threads. Of course, as always, if you have more questions or anything like that, you can ask me in the comments, or you can shoot me an email. I don't mind answering them if I can. Yeah, sometimes I have to look things up, y'all. I don't know everything. Still learning about some things, but in my experience, these are the threads I have most often. I have some specialty threads that are just kind of hanging out. Aurifil and Gutermann would be the ones I use the most, with Coats and Clark coming second for different purposes. Even though I have a ton of that other thread, I would buy more of the Gutermann and Aurifil for specific things, because they are, for quilting, that's what I want on the top. Okay, I don't want any of the polyester, any of the other threads. But I will use that other thread up for sewing seams and stuff like that. So yeah, I keep all of my thread on a sewing rack. It's actually a double. Well, hold on. I'm gonna pause this so I can show it to y'all. Okay, I'm gonna try to hold this still. But this is my sewing rack above my sewing machine, or the table I sew on. It's actually a double. I do have it in color order. I just reorganized it the other day, with this portion here being my heavy duty threads, and then I have a bunch of bobbins that I wind. I'm trying to get better about winding a bunch of bobbins before I start sewing, so when I run out, it's easy to just change it out. But this is actually a double rack. There's two of them there, and I just hung them on the pegboard with some hooks, and that's all it is. So not anything super fancy, just a place to keep my threads. So I hope y'all learned some things. As I said before, if you have any questions, let me know. You can email me or let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing down below. And I will see y'all later.